Hi guys, and welcome back to History Revision Success. So in the last video, I talked to you about the life and experience of African Americans, particularly for the 1920s, as that's what comes up in our course. Now, the next thing you have to know in the course is the role of the KKK. Now, by KKK, I mean the Ku Klux Klan, and this is something which is very heavily related to the life and experience of the African American community. It's created as a, I guess, like a racist terrorist, perhaps some people might call it, group against the progress in rights that the African American community were trying to achieve. So they absolutely come as one. So at the same time as the African American community were trying to gain rights and freedoms, we were having the formation of these groups in response. So in 1866, armed racist groups were set up in most states in the old Confederacy. So remember, if you watch that more extended timeline, I told you that those southern states left the Union, which is what then prompted the Civil War led by Abraham Lincoln of the North against those Confederate states to try and bring them back into the Union. Once they returned to the Union, they had to accept the end of slavery and later the end of the Black Codes. Okay, so out of all of that, we have the formation of people who are very, very frustrated by these restrictions that are being placed upon them, and therefore they're forming these white racist armed groups as a kind of an outlet for this anger and hate that they have. The KKK was first established in Tennessee by a war hero by the name of General Nathan Bedford Forrest. It grew very, very rapidly between 1868 and 1871, and it had 40,000 members in Tennessee alone, 500,000 across the South. Laws introduced by Republican state governments to try and stop the KKK proved very hard to enforce. Democrats often encouraged and colluded in Klan terrorism. They gave each other alibis. Frequently, jurors and judges were also within the Klan. Governor Holden of North Carolina used the state militia against the Klan, and he was condemned by state legislature for subverting the personal liberty of the Klansmen. So somebody is trying to use, armed forces, the militia, against these people who are clearly breaking the law, committing awful wrongs, and he's been targeted and told he's broken the law, okay? So we have this situation of collusion between lots of levels of government and those who have these same racist beliefs. Now, in 1870, Congress passed 3 Force Acts, which gave President Grant, who was president at the time, legal and military power to crush the Klan. Now, this ended most of Klan activity at this time. However, violence still occurred, often from ex-Confederate soldiers, and we still see huge numbers, around 3,000 examples of lynchings, completely unfair, on no trial, awful, racist, racially targeted murder. Now, this is, I guess, where we see the end of the first KKK. But what we have to understand is that with the KKK, there are points of resurgence, okay? So the first KKK is kind of put down or ended by President Grant with the 3 Force Acts. However, in 1915, the film Birth of a Nation was shown, and this absolutely revived the KKK movement. It told stories of Klansmen saving white families from gangs of violent Black criminals, glorifying the Klan as an organization intent on protecting decent, law-abiding citizens. The film attracted huge audiences. As we know, cinema is developing and booming in this time, and one of those films being shown in cinemas where, tickets were selling 4 times higher than ever before because of the growth of Hollywood, the development of more free time, higher wages in factories because of mass production. I hope you're seeing how all these things tie in together. So this film in particular attracted huge audiences, and by 1925, membership of the Klan had boosted again to 5 million. So this is what we call the second KKK, now really triggered by the film Birth of a Nation. So the second KKK, now it was founded atop Stone Mountain in Georgia as a reaction to the film Birth of a Nation by William Simmons. The earlier Klan, so the first point of surge of the KKK, had not worn the white costumes or burned crosses, which are kind of now seen as being symbolic of the KKK. This was actually filmed and introduced in the film itself, and it was then copied in this second resurgence of the KKK. Simmons and his Klansmen paraded to the theatre in robes and pointed hoods. They preached this idea of 100% Americanism and demanded a purification of politics, strict morality, better enforcement of prohibition. At its peak, it reached 4 to 5 million men, and by 1930, however, this had then dropped again to 30,000. So again, we see the end of the second peak, and I'll tell you why that happened in just a moment. Now, in terms of its appeal, most members were poor, white people living in southern and western states of America. Many had not seen the prosperity that was promised with the boom and wanted someone to blame. The KKK's aim was to maintain white supremacy over African Americans and immigrants. The Klan disliked African Americans, Catholics, Jews, immigrants, and they targeted anyone who wasn't white Protestant. In terms of methods, they dressed up in white sheets, white hoods, carried American flags, used methods of intimidation such as whipping, branding with acid, kidnapping, castration, and lynching. And the Klan was led in the second kind of surge by a dentist called Hiram Wesley Evans, who was known as the Imperial Wizard. He controlled local units and dens of Klansmen. They had secret ceremonies and code. There was a handbook they called the Kloran, and they had code words like conversations, okay? So there were special ways of saying to someone when you met them, are you a Klan member or not? Now, the decline. So I previously mentioned that after its kind of height of almost 5 million members, by 1930, the KKK had dropped to 30,000 members. And this was predominantly to do with the fact that the mass appeal of the Klan did not last long, as an important leader named David Stevenson, who is behind me, was convicted of rape and murder, and his trial exposed many KKK secrets. He was sentenced, and the KKK's membership therefore fell. People were worried they'd be found out. Part of the attraction of the KKK at this time was the anonymity of it. You know, you wore hoods, you wore robes, nobody knew who you were. If there was a risk of being found out, people didn't want so much to be a part of it. Now, that's the KKK for what we need to know for our GCSE. I guess it's important to know the KKK are still in existence. They still exist today, although, you know, there are disagreements over what they stand for these days. But that's the summary of the KKK in the 1920s.